At night, California's forests change. The familiar trails fade into darkness. Trees lean closer. The wind begins to whisper names it should not know. Some forests are quiet. Others watch. Hikers vanish without a sound. Campfires go out on their own. Footsteps follow where no one walks. Locals warn that certain forests are not meant to be entered after sunset. They say the land remembers pain, fear, and unfinished stories. And when the forest remembers, it does not forget. Tonight, we step into the shadows of California to uncover the most haunted forests in the state. 20 places where the trees stand on cursed ground, and where the past still breathes between the branches. If you heard your name whispered from deep within the forest, would you follow the sound, or would you turn back while you still could? Hello, my dear friend. I hope you are safe and comfortable, because what we are about to explore is not for the faint of heart. California is known for sunshine, beaches, and towering redwoods. But hidden beyond the highways and cities are forests where fear has taken root. Some of these woods were once sacred ground. Others were sites of tragedy, violence, and disappearance. Over time, the land absorbed what happened there. Visitors speak of shadows moving between trees. Of voices calling from deep within the fog. Of paths that twist and change when no one is looking. Before we take the first step forward, let me ask you this. If the forest offered you answers to secrets you have always wanted to know, but demanded you never leave, would you listen? Take a slow breath. Stay close. And let us enter the haunted forests of California. Deep within Northern California, the Hoopa Valley Forest rests beneath layers of mist and memory, a place where towering trees stand like witnesses to centuries of passing footsteps. The forest stretches across ridges and valleys, quiet during the day yet heavy with a presence that seems to deepen as sunlight fades. Many who arrive expect peace and shade. Few are prepared for the feeling that the land is paying attention. The first sensation most visitors notice is silence. Not the calm silence of nature at rest, but a pause that feels deliberate. Birds call, then stop. Wind moves through the canopy, then stills. The forest appears to listen. Some say it is the weight of age, trunks wider than roads and roots older than history. Others believe it is something more aware, something that notices movement and intention. Campers often speak of nights that refuse to remain quiet. After midnight, when fires die down and conversations end, a low rhythm begins to pulse through the darkness. It resembles distant drums, steady and measured, never rushing. Campers step outside their tents, shining lights into the trees, yet find nothing but shadow and bark. The sound fades before dawn, leaving behind an uneasy calm and a lingering question. Footsteps are another common report. Light at first, as if an animal is passing by. Then slower, more deliberate, circling the tents with patient persistence. No snapping branches. No rustling leaves. Just the sense of movement tracing the edge of the campsite. Those who stay awake until sunrise often describe the relief of daylight, followed by confusion when they find no tracks in the soil. During the day, the forest feels different but no less unsettling. Trails twist through dense undergrowth, marked clearly at first, then subtly altered. Hikers speak of familiar paths that seem to bend when no one is looking. A turn remembered from minutes earlier leads somewhere new. A clearing vanishes behind a wall of ferns. The sense of direction slips away quietly, like a thought forgotten mid-sentence. Compasses behave strangely in certain areas. Needles spin or drift, refusing to settle. Phones lose signal without warning. Maps appear accurate yet fail to match the ground beneath one's boots. Some hikers trust instinct, moving toward what feels like an opening. Others freeze, uncertain which way leads back. Panic rarely arrives all at once. It builds slowly, fed by doubt and the growing awareness of being watched. Trees in Hoopa Valley Forest have a way of appearing closer than before. Trunks seem to lean inward as the day progresses. Gaps between them narrow. Sunlight struggles to reach the ground. A hiker may stop to rest and swear that the arrangement of branches has shifted during the pause. The forest never moves quickly. It changes in increments too small to challenge reason, yet too persistent to ignore. Those who wander too far often return altered. They speak less. Their eyes track the edges of rooms. Sleep comes in fragments. Many say they felt followed on the way home, not by a shape or a sound, but by a pressure that lingered just behind their thoughts. Doors feel heavier. Shadows stretch longer than expected. The forest, they believe, did not release them entirely. Locals carry these stories with caution. They respect the land and the distance it demands. Advice is offered quietly. Stay on marked paths. Leave before dark. Listen when the forest feels wrong. The valley has its own rhythm, and it does not adjust itself for visitors. Scientists and rangers offer practical explanations. Dense growth can disorient. Magnetic minerals may affect instruments. Night sounds travel farther in cool air. Yet even those who know the data admit that Hoopa Valley Forest feels different. The air holds weight. Time seems to stretch. A short walk becomes longer than expected. A long hike feels endless. As evening settles, mist rises from the ground and curls between the trees. The forest exhales. Shadows merge and separate, forming shapes that last only a moment. The sense of being observed returns, gentle yet firm. It is not hostile. It is attentive. The land remembers who enters and how they move through it. Hoopa Valley Forest remains where it has always been, ancient and patient. It does not chase. It does not call out by name. It simply waits, allowing those who pass through to feel its presence and carry that feeling away. Some return seeking answers. Others choose never to come back. The forest continues, unchanged by fear or belief. Watching as it always has, long after the last footsteps fade from its trails. Deep within Northern California, the Hoopa Valley Forest stretches across rolling hills and shadowed river bends. A place where time feels slowed and the air carries a quiet weight. Towering trees rise like silent witnesses, their canopies woven so tightly that sunlight filters through in thin, wavering lines. From the first step beneath the branches, many visitors sense that this forest is not empty, even when no one else is in sight. The land has long been shaped by stories passed down through generations. They speak of a forest that observes rather than hides, a place that listens as closely as it breathes. The wind moves through the leaves in steady pulses, not random, but measured, as if responding to something unseen. In the stillness between gusts, the silence feels deliberate, almost expectant. Campers often describe their nights here as restless. As darkness settles, familiar forest sounds fade earlier than expected. Crickets quiet down. Owls grow distant. Then, somewhere beyond the ring of firelight, a low rhythmic sound begins. It resembles drums carried on the air, slow and steady, echoing through the trees. Campers step outside their tents to listen, but the forest offers no source. No movement. No figures. Just the sound, repeating until it finally fades near dawn. Light at first, circling just beyond the reach of lantern glow. The pattern is patient, unhurried, never approaching, never retreating. Tents rustle slightly as if brushed by passing air. Some people stay awake until sunrise, too uneasy to sleep, counting hours by the slow movement of shadows. When morning comes, the forest looks unchanged, offering no tracks or signs that anything passed by during the night. Hikers who venture deeper into Hoopa Valley Forest often report a different kind of unease. Trails that appeared clear on the way in seem altered on the return. A familiar bend no longer leads where it should. Landmarks feel subtly displaced, as if the forest has shifted while no one was watching. Trees lean at new angles. Clearings narrow. Paths thin until they vanish entirely beneath fallen needles and moss. Compasses behave strangely here. Needles tremble, then spin without settling. Even experienced hikers who rely on maps and instinct find themselves doubting their sense of direction. The forest seems to stretch in unexpected ways. A short walk becomes hours. Distances lose meaning. The deeper one goes, the more the landscape feels alive, not hostile, but aware. Some describe the sensation of being guided rather than lost. Turns feel suggested, not chosen. A pressure behind the shoulders urges movement forward. Others sense they are being gently herded away from certain areas, redirected without force. Panic rarely strikes immediately. Instead, confusion grows slowly, like fog filling a valley. Those who manage to find their way back often speak of a lingering presence. The feeling does not always end at the forest edge. At home, familiar rooms feel slightly altered. Sounds echo longer than they should. Shadows gather in corners where light once reached easily. Sleep becomes uneasy, dreams filled with tall trees and distant rhythms. Neighbors and family notice changes too. Returned hikers seem quieter, distracted, as if listening for something only they can hear. Some report hearing faint drumming far from the forest, late at night, when everything else is still. The sound never lasts long, but it leaves behind a sense of being observed. Despite these stories, the Hoopa Valley Forest remains beautiful. Sunlight through mist creates scenes of quiet wonder. Rivers move calmly through stone and root. Wildlife appears suddenly and vanishes just as fast. The forest does not feel angry or cruel. It feels old, settled, and deeply aware of its boundaries. Visitors who respect the land often describe calmer experiences. Staying close to marked paths. Leaving before nightfall. Moving slowly, attentively. The forest seems to respond in kind, remaining silent and still. Those who push deeper, driven by curiosity or challenge, are more likely to encounter the unsettling side of the valley. As with many ancient places, Hoopa Valley Forest resists easy explanation. It does not announce its presence with sudden terror or spectacle. Instead, it works quietly, through subtle shifts, lost time, and lingering impressions. The stories left behind are not of what was seen, but of what was felt. In the end, the forest stands unchanged, continuing its long watch over the valley. Trees sway. Rivers flow. Paths appear and disappear beneath seasons of growth. Whether the forest truly follows those who wander too far, or whether it simply leaves a mark on the mind, remains uncertain. What is clear is that once Hoopa Valley Forest is experienced, it is rarely forgotten, and for some, never entirely left behind. Angeles National Forest sits close enough to the city that the glow of Los Angeles can sometimes be seen from its ridgelines. By day, it feels open and familiar, crossed by trails, roads, and overlooks where people pause for photos and fresh air. By night, that familiarity fades. Darkness settles quickly beneath the trees, deeper than expected for a place so near to millions of people. As the sun drops behind the mountains, sound changes first. The wind moves differently through the pines, carrying echoes that seem to stretch farther than they should. Footsteps crunch on gravel and then vanish, swallowed by distance. Even experienced hikers describe a strange quiet, not the peaceful silence of wilderness, but a heavy stillness that presses in from all sides. Disappearances have long been part of the forest's reputation. Some are explained by difficult terrain, sudden weather, or simple missteps. Others remain unresolved, leaving behind abandoned cars, unfinished hikes, and questions that never find answers. Search teams comb the canyons and ravines, tracing trails that end abruptly, as if someone simply stepped off the map. Those who spend time in the forest after dark often speak of sounds that do not belong. Children laughing softly, drifting between trees where no campsites exist. The laughter is distant and faint, yet clear enough to raise the hairs on the back of the neck. It never seems to come closer, no matter how far one walks toward it. It also never fully fades, lingering just beyond hearing. On the long, winding roads that cut through the forest, drivers report sudden trouble. Engines stall without warning on empty stretches of pavement. Headlights flicker, radios lose signal, and phones show no service even when they worked moments earlier. The air inside feels colder, as if something unseen passed through. Many describe the same unsettling presence. A figure standing just beyond the tree line, motionless and silent. It does not call out or approach. It simply watches. The shape is often described as human, but indistinct, blurred by darkness and distance. When headlights or flashlights turn toward it, the figure slips away, dissolving into shadow as though it were never there. Hikers who encounter this presence often feel an overwhelming urge to leave. Paths that were clear moments before seem unfamiliar, twisting into routes they do not remember choosing. Time feels distorted. Minutes stretch into hours, while entire sections of trail pass in what feels like seconds. Compasses spin slightly off true north, and landmarks appear subtly altered. There are stories of people following sounds or shapes, convinced they are close to help or another hiker. Instead, they find themselves deeper in the forest, surrounded by trees that look the same in every direction. Panic sets in slowly, fed by the sense of being observed. Even when no movement is visible, the feeling of eyes remains. Search and rescue workers speak carefully about these accounts. They focus on practical explanations: fatigue, dehydration, fear, and the Minda's response to isolation. Yet some admit that the forest behaves strangely at night. Sounds travel in ways that defy easy logic. Distances feel deceptive. Familiar rules seem slightly bent. Locals who know the area well often avoid certain roads and trails after sunset. Not because of any single incident, but because of patterns. Places where radios always cut out. Curves in the road where headlights seem dimmer. Clearings where animals fall silent all at once, leaving an unnatural calm behind. The forest itself feels ancient, older than the city pressing against its edges. Trees rise like dark pillars, their branches interlocking overhead, blocking out stars. The ground dips into ravines that hide cold air and deep shadow. Every step off the trail feels like a step into another layer of darkness. Those who leave the forest safely often carry something back with them. Not proof, not clear memories, but a lingering unease. A sense that something noticed them. That the forest is not empty, even when it appears so. The laughter, the figure, the sudden silence all blend into a feeling that resists explanation. Angeles National Forest remains open, visited daily by hikers, cyclists, and drivers passing through. By daylight, it seems harmless, even welcoming. By night, it becomes something else entirely. A place where the boundary between the known and the unknown feels thin. For some, the forest is simply wilderness. For others, it is a place of unanswered questions and half-seen shapes. The disappearances, the stalled cars, the watching figure all form part of a quiet legend that continues to grow. Close to the city, yet far from understanding. The forest waits. Silent. Watching. Angeles National Forest sits close to the glow of the city, a vast stretch of mountains and trees rising just beyond highways and neighborhoods. During the day it feels open and welcoming, a place of sunlight and wide trails. But when night falls, the forest changes. Darkness gathers quickly beneath the canopy, and familiar sounds fade into something quieter and harder to name. As evening settles, the last hikers hurry back toward their cars. The air cools, and shadows stretch across the paths. Once the gates close and traffic noise thins, the forest feels far removed from the city it overlooks. Lights disappear, and the terrain becomes a maze of ridges and valleys where sound carries in strange ways. Many visitors describe a sense of being watched after sunset. It is not panic at first, but a subtle pressure, as if attention is resting on them from somewhere just out of sight. Footsteps seem to echo longer than they should. Then silence returns, deep and complete. Stories of disappearances have followed the forest for decades. Some involve experienced hikers who knew the trails well. Others are travelers who pulled over briefly and never returned. Search teams combed familiar routes, yet found little to explain where the people went or why they left the paths at all. One of the most unsettling details shared by visitors is the sound of children laughing. It is often described as distant and playful, drifting through the trees late at night. There are no nearby campsites, no families present, and no lights to suggest human activity. The laughter fades as quickly as it appears, leaving behind a hollow quiet that feels heavier than before. Drivers on the narrow mountain roads tell similar stories. Engines sputter without warning, headlights flicker, and radios cut to static. When the car finally rolls to a stop, the surrounding darkness feels close enough to touch. Stepping outside brings no clear answers, only the sense that the forest has drawn a boundary around the road. Some people report seeing a figure standing just beyond the tree line. It does not move or speak. It simply watches, tall and still, blending with the shadows. When someone gathers the courage to step closer, the figure retreats without sound, dissolving into the darkness as if it was never there at all. The forest itself seems to play a role in these experiences. Wind moves through branches in uneven patterns, carrying whispers that are impossible to trace. Trails curve and double back in ways that can confuse even careful travelers. Landmarks look familiar at first, then subtly wrong, as though distance and direction have shifted. Search and rescue teams often speak of the forest with respect. They know how quickly conditions can change and how disorienting the terrain becomes at night. Even with modern equipment, locating someone after dark can be difficult. Yet there are cases where tracks end abruptly, as if the person simply stepped off the map. Time feels different in the forest after midnight. Minutes stretch, and hours pass unnoticed. A watch might show that only a short time has gone by, while the body insists much longer has passed. Fatigue settles in quickly, clouding judgment and making simple decisions harder to trust. Despite these stories, the forest is not openly hostile. It does not chase or threaten. Instead, it waits. Those who spend time there at night often say the fear comes from uncertainty rather than danger itself. The sense that something unseen is nearby, observing quietly, is what lingers longest. As dawn approaches, the forest releases its grip. Light returns, shadows thin, and birdsong replaces the silence. Trails look ordinary again, and the roadways feel safe. Whatever watched from the trees retreats with the darkness, leaving behind no clear proof it was ever there. Angeles National Forest remains a place of beauty and mystery. A reminder that wilderness can exist alongside cities without losing its power. By day it welcomes visitors with open views and quiet paths. By night it holds its secrets close, asking only that those who enter remember how easily the familiar can become unknown. For some, the stories are enough to keep them away after sunset. For others, the unanswered questions draw them closer. The forest does not explain itself. It simply stands, dark and patient, just beyond the reach of the city lights. Mendocino woodland stretches across rolling hills and deep ravines, a forest shaped by fog, rain, and time. Even in full daylight, there is a weight in the air that visitors often notice without understanding. The trees stand tall and close together, their branches knitting a high canopy that dims the sun and softens sound. Footsteps seem quieter here, as if the ground itself absorbs movement and memory. The land was once carefully organized. Paths were cleared, camps were built, and people gathered here for work, rest, and shared purpose. Now those structures remain only as outlines and fragments. Cabins lean into the undergrowth. Wooden steps sink into moss. Fire rings sit cold and undisturbed, their stones darkened by years of rain. Nature has reclaimed what was left behind, but it has not erased it. Walking through the woods during the day feels like moving through layers of time. Sunlight filters through redwood and pine, casting long shadows that shift slowly across the ground. The air smells of damp earth and old leaves. Birds call from unseen perches, and the distant wind moves through the branches with a low, steady breath. Everything appears calm, yet there is a persistent sense of being watched, as if the forest is quietly aware of every step. As evening approaches, the atmosphere changes. Light fades quickly beneath the canopy, and colors drain from the landscape. Paths that seemed clear become harder to follow. Familiar landmarks blend into one another. The forest grows still, not silent, but hushed in a way that feels deliberate. It is during these hours that many visitors choose to leave, guided by instinct rather than reason. Those who remain after dark often describe the same experience. The woods feel closer, more confined. Sounds travel in strange ways, echoing where there should be none, disappearing where they should linger. A snapped twig might come from behind, then from far ahead, with no clear source. The sense of distance becomes unreliable, as if space itself bends between the trees. It is at night that the lantern lights are said to appear. Small points of warm glow flicker deep among the branches, moving slowly and deliberately. They do not sway like reflections or fireflies. They advance along invisible paths, pausing as if waiting to be noticed. From a distance, they resemble someone walking carefully through the woods, holding a light to guide the way. Along with the lights come the voices. Soft at first, barely distinguishable from the wind. A call for help drifts through the trees, carried just clearly enough to be understood. The voice sounds human, strained but calm, as if trying not to panic. It seems close, then farther away, then close again, always just out of sight. Those who hear the voices often feel an immediate pull to respond. The forest encourages movement, urging travelers off the main paths and into narrower trails that twist between trees. The ground slopes gently downward, drawing people deeper into the woods. The lantern light remains ahead, never fully reached, never completely lost. As the distance from the known paths grows, so does unease. The air feels heavier. Breathing becomes more deliberate. Familiar forest sounds fade, replaced by an unnatural quiet that presses against the ears. The voice continues to call, sometimes from the left, sometimes from the right, never staying in one place long enough to follow with certainty. Eventually, the trees open into a clearing. The lantern light vanishes. The voice stops. What remains is an empty space surrounded by dark trunks and tangled branches. No footprints mark the ground. No sign of another person appears. Only the sudden awareness of isolation settles in, sharp and undeniable. Travelers realize how far they have gone, how unfamiliar the forest has become. Fear arrives not as panic, but as clarity. Directions no longer make sense. Paths that should lead back seem to dissolve into identical corridors of shadow. The woods offer no guidance, only silence and distance. Some describe the feeling as being gently pushed away from safety, not by force, but by suggestion. Each step feels slightly heavier than the last. Time stretches, minutes passing like hours as the mind struggles to remain calm. When escape finally comes, it often happens without explanation. A familiar trail appears where none existed before. The canopy thins, allowing moonlight to guide the way. The oppressive weight lifts gradually, leaving behind exhaustion and confusion. Looking back, the forest appears unchanged, peaceful, almost welcoming. By morning, Mendocino Woodlands returns to its quiet daylight state. The abandoned camps sit as they always have, weathered and still. Birds resume their calls. Sunlight warms the ground. Yet those who experienced the forest at night carry something with them when they leave. A memory of lights that should not exist. Of voices that led nowhere. Of a place that seemed to listen and respond. The forest does not reveal its intentions, if it has any at all. It simply remains, holding its stories beneath layers of leaves and shadow. Mendocino Woodland stands as a reminder that some places are shaped not only by history and nature, but by the emotions they awaken. And once felt, that presence is never fully forgotten. Big Basin Redwoods lies deep in the mountains of California, a place where time seems to slow beneath towering trunks and filtered light. The forest feels older than memory, shaped by centuries of rain, fire, and quiet endurance. Visitors often arrive expecting calm and beauty. Many leave with a sense that the land itself is awake. The redwoods rise like pillars, their bark scarred and layered, their crowns vanishing into mist. Walking among them creates a strange sense of scale. Human footsteps feel small and temporary. The ground beneath the feet feels springy, alive with roots and unseen life. During the day, Big Basin feels watchful rather than welcoming. Sunlight drips through the canopy in narrow beams. Ferns glow softly, then darken as clouds pass. The forest never feels empty, even when no one else is around. There is a constant awareness, as if something old is observing quietly from a distance. Campers describe nights that feel unusually intimate. Darkness arrives early beneath the trees, settling thick and close. Tents glow faintly, small islands of light in a vast shadow. After midnight, when wind fades and insects grow still, a new sound sometimes begins. A slow, steady rhythm, like breathing, rises from just beyond the fabric walls. At first it seems like imagination, a trick of nerves amplified by silence. Then the sound moves. It shifts position, circling the campsite without urgency. The cracks are heavy, deliberate, as if something large is adjusting its weight just out of sight. No shape ever appears. Flashlights reveal trunks and ferns, nothing more. Yet the sense of presence remains strong. The breathing fades near dawn, replaced by birdsong and relief. In the morning, the forest looks unchanged. Only the memory of a night that felt too aware to be empty. Hikers who stay for several days often speak of dreams. The dreams arrive vividly, repeating across nights with subtle changes. Forest paths stretch endlessly. Trees lean inward. A feeling of urgency grows without explanation. Some dream of standing still while the ground pulses beneath them, urging movement in a single direction. Those who ignore it often report restless days. Simple tasks take longer. Trails seem to loop back on themselves. The forest feels heavier, as if pressing down gently but persistently. Big Basin has a way of reshaping perception. Distances feel distorted. A short walk becomes longer than planned. A long hike feels compressed, hours passing unnoticed. Watches and phones still function, yet the body senses something different, something slower and deeper. The ground itself feels active. Roots cross paths like veins beneath the soil. Fallen logs decay slowly, feeding new growth. Moisture clings to everything, from leaves to skin. Stepping off the trail creates an immediate sense of intrusion, as if boundaries exist beyond what signs and maps indicate. Rangers and scientists explain much of this through ecology and psychology. These explanations are reasonable and often reassuring. Even those familiar with the land admit that Big Basin carries a presence difficult to measure. As evening approaches, the forest changes character. Mist gathers low to the ground, softening edges. Colors deepen. The air cools rapidly. Sounds travel farther, then disappear without warning. The sense of being alone fades, replaced by the feeling of sharing space with something vast and patient. Fire scars mark many of the trees, reminders of past destruction and survival. New growth rises from blackened bark. Life here does not end easily. It adapts and continues. That resilience adds to the feeling that the forest is not passive. It responds, remembers, and persists. Some visitors return year after year, drawn by the mystery as much as the beauty. Others choose not to come back, unsettled by dreams and memories that linger longer than expected. They speak of hearing breathing in quiet rooms, or feeling watched in places far from the forest. The influence, they say, followed them for a while. Big Basin redwoods remain steady, ancient, and unchanged by individual fear or belief. It does not threaten. It does not pursue. It simply exists with a depth that challenges the human sense of control. To walk among these trees is to feel small, temporary, and observed. When visitors finally leave, the road curves away and the forest closes behind them. The redwoods stand as they always have, rooted deep, breathing slowly. Breathing slowly, holding their restless energy beneath layers of bark and time. Whether the forest speaks or simply reflects what people bring into it remains uncertain. What is clear is that Big Basin does not let everyone pass through without leaving a mark. Plumas National Forest spreads across the high country of Northern California, where winter lingers longer than expected and snow reshapes the land into something quiet and severe. Pine branches bend under frozen weight, and the ground disappears beneath layers of white that soften every sound. Even during the day, the forest feels hushed, as if noise itself struggles to survive the cold. When night falls, the silence deepens. Temperatures drop sharply, faster than weather reports suggest. And the cold seems to settle into the bones rather than the air. Campers describe it as unnatural, a chill that presses inward instead of simply surrounding the body. Fires burn low and fast, their warmth failing to push back the darkness that gathers between the trees. The wind is rarely still here. It slides through narrow valleys and along frozen ridges, carrying sounds that do not always belong to the weather. Some nights, listeners hear what resembles chanting woven into the gusts. The tones rise and fall, distant and indistinct, never forming words, yet clearly patterned. Those who stop to listen often feel unsure whether the sound is growing closer or simply circling far beyond sight. Shadows move easily in Plumas National Forest, especially when moonlight reflects off the snow. Shapes appear between trees, tall and narrow, then vanish when looked at directly. Skiers and night hikers report the sense of being paced, footsteps matching their own rhythm just out of view. During heavy snowfall, the forest becomes disorienting. Familiar trails flatten beneath fresh layers of ice. Markers disappear. Distances stretch, making short routes feel endless. Compasses work, but confidence does not. Many people describe the sense that the forest is holding its breath, waiting for movement, tracking every step taken across its frozen floor. Local stories speak of memories buried beneath the snow, moments from long ago pressed deep into the ground. Tragedies that never fully faded, preserved by ice and time. Some believe the forest does not forget, that winter merely seals those memories until conditions allow them to surface again. The idea is not presented as a warning, but as an explanation for the heaviness that settles over the land. Travelers who spend extended time here often experience strange dreams. Sleep comes in fragments, interrupted by the sound of wind striking tents or cabins. Waking brings no relief, only the lingering sense of being watched from every direction. Tracks in the snow add to the unease. Footprints sometimes appear where no one has walked, leading away from campsites toward dense stands of trees. They are shallow, quickly erased by drifting snow, leaving behind questions rather than answers. By morning, all signs are gone, and the forest looks untouched, smooth and perfect once more. Despite these experiences, Plumas National Forest is not openly hostile. Its beauty is undeniable. Sunlight on fresh snow turns the land brilliant and calm. Frozen lakes reflect the sky like polished glass. Wildlife emerges quietly, moving with purpose and familiarity, as if unaffected by the tension humans feel so strongly. The forest belongs to winter in a way few places do. Those who respect the conditions often report calmer visits. Staying within known routes. Traveling in daylight. Leaving before darkness deepens. The forest seems to allow this balance, offering silence without disturbance. Problems tend to arise when people push deeper, chasing isolation or testing limits. Lingering long after the sun has disappeared behind the mountains. Even after leaving, some visitors carry Plumas National Forest with them. The cold feels sharper elsewhere. Wind sounds different, layered with faint echoes of rhythm. Snowfall brings an unshakable sense of familiarity, as if the forest has followed in spirit, not presence. These feelings fade over time, but rarely vanish completely. In the end, Plumas National Forest remains what it has always been. Vast, quiet, and shaped by seasons that erase as much as they reveal. Whether the chanting belongs to memory, imagination, or something older than both is impossible to say. What remains certain is the impression the forest leaves behind. A place where snow does not merely cover the ground, but holds stories beneath it, waiting patiently through the long, frozen nights. Los Padres National Forest stretches across a vast sweep of coastal mountains, following ridgelines and plunging into deep canyons that rarely see direct sunlight. From within, it feels enclosed, shaped by steep slopes, narrow trails, and long distances that separate one clearing from the next. By day, the forest is alive with movement. Wind slides through chaparral and oak. Birds scatter from branches. And distant water moves through unseen channels below. Trails climb steadily, offering wide views of the ocean or the interior ranges. Everything appears balanced and natural, a place shaped by time and weather alone. As evening approaches, the character of the forest changes. Light fades unevenly, lingering on ridges while canyons sink into darkness. Sound begins to travel strangely. Voices seem closer than they should be, then suddenly far away. Many hikers choose to turn back before night fully settles, guided by an instinct that something becomes unsettled after sunset. Those who remain describe a subtle shift. The forest feels attentive, as though it is listening. It is often during these moments that people hear their names whispered softly. The sound is gentle, carried on the air, clear enough to recognize yet impossible to trace. It does not repeat loudly or urgently. It simply drifts past, leaving uncertainty behind. Some assume they imagined it, a trick of wind and fatigue. Others stop walking, heart pounding, certain they were addressed directly. When they answer or turn toward the sound, there is no response. The forest resumes its quiet, offering no explanation. High on distant ridges, figures are sometimes seen standing still against the fading light. They appear as silhouettes, human in shape, watching from above. The figures do not wave or signal. They remain motionless, as if observing the trails below. Hikers often feel compelled to move closer, driven by curiosity or the hope of finding another person. As they approach, the terrain seems to change. Ground that was firm becomes loose and uneven. Trails narrow unexpectedly or tilt at sharp angles. Progress slows, legs strain, and balance becomes difficult. Some describe the sensation as though the land itself resists movement, shifting just enough to make each step uncertain. The effort it took to climb feels wasted, replaced by a growing sense of disorientation. Familiar landmarks no longer align the way they should. Canyons deepen this feeling. Sound drops away completely, replaced by a heavy stillness. Even the wind seems to pause. In these places, whispers feel closer, brushing past the edge of hearing. The forest does not feel hostile, but it feels aware, as if every movement is being noted. Search teams and long-time locals acknowledge that navigation here can be challenging. Yet they also admit that some accounts do not fit simple explanations. People return shaken, unable to describe exactly what happened, only how it felt. Many who leave the forest speak of a lingering presence. Not something seen, but something sensed. They describe glancing into rearview mirrors more often on the drive home. Or waking at night with the feeling that someone is standing just out of sight. These sensations fade over time, but never fully disappear. The idea that something followed them back is difficult to explain. Yet it is shared quietly among those who have spent long hours alone in the forest. They describe subtle changes. Familiar places feel slightly different. Silence feels heavier. Shadows seem deeper than before. Los Padres National Forest remains a place of beauty and solitude. It draws hikers, campers, and explorers seeking distance from the noise of daily life. Most visits pass without incident, marked only by long climbs and sweeping views. Yet the stories persist, carried by those who felt the forest shift around them. The whispered names, the watching figures, the unsteady ground all form a pattern that resists clear understanding. They do not appear to threaten or chase. They observe, guide, and sometimes disorient, leaving questions rather than answers. Stretching across mountains and canyons, the forest holds its secrets quietly. It does not announce them. It waits for those who linger, who walk a little farther, who listen too closely when the wind changes tone. For many, Los Padres is simply wilderness. For others, it is a place that notices when you enter, and remembers when you leave. Tahoe National Forest stretches across high ridges and deep valleys, a place where clear air and wide skies invite people to slow down. Pine forests surround alpine lakes, and sunlight reflects off water that appears calm and endless. At first glance, everything feels peaceful. The beauty is immediate and convincing, masking the quiet risks that have shaped its reputation over time. During the day, the forest feels generous. Trails wind through tall trees. And the ground is soft with needles and fallen leaves. Campers set up near lockshores, watching smoke rise gently from their fires. Laughter carries easily in the thin mountain air. The scale of the landscape makes worries feel small, as if the forest itself is offering comfort. As evening arrives, the atmosphere shifts almost imperceptibly. Colors fade, and the trees seem to stand closer together. The last sunlight slips behind the ridgelines, and shadows stretch between trunks. Beyond that circle of warmth, the forest grows quiet. Many campers describe seeing shadows standing still between the trees. These shapes do not move with the wind or flicker like ordinary darkness. They appear to be watching the flames and the people gathered around them. It begins as awareness, a sense that the forest is paying attention. People glance beyond the firelight, trying to make sense of what they see. Neither approaching nor retreating. Night deepens, and the lakes take on a different presence. Water that seemed welcoming during the day becomes dark and reflective, mirroring the sky with unsettling clarity. Sound travels far across the surface. A single noise can echo from shore to shore, losing its direction as it moves. It is often at this point that voices are reported. They drift across the lake, calling softly from the darkness. The voices sound familiar, sometimes like friends, sometimes like family. They call names with calm certainty, as if they know exactly who is listening. Those who hear the voices describe a powerful urge to follow. The sound seems to promise understanding or safety just beyond the trees. A path appears obvious, even when none was noticed before. Some people step away from campfires without telling anyone, drawn by the calm insistence of the call. The lead investigator is now alone, walking deeper into the forest. Not everyone who follows returns. Search efforts begin with clear plans and strong confidence. Yet outcomes are uncertain. Trails are searched, shorelines examined, and familiar routes retraced. In some cases, there are signs of travel that simply stop. In others, there is nothing at all, as if the forest absorbed the person without leaving a trace. Those who do return struggle to explain what happened. They speak of intense fear that arrived suddenly, without warning or clear cause. Their surroundings looked familiar, yet felt wrong. The trees seemed closer, the ground uneven, and distance hard to judge. Panic took hold even when there was no visible threat. Time behaves strangely in these moments. A short walk can feel endless. The forest grows quiet in a way that feels deliberate, as if sound itself is being held back. Breathing becomes loud, footsteps too noticeable. The urge to escape overwhelms thought, driving people back toward any light they can find. The forest does not announce danger. It offers no clear signs or dramatic warnings. Instead, it relies on subtle shifts in perception. Familiar landmarks blur together. Direction feels uncertain. Confidence fades, replaced by the sense that something unseen is nearby, watching and waiting. Campers who leave early often say they cannot explain their decision. Nothing specific happened. There was no single moment of threat. They simply felt the need to go, as if staying any longer would be a mistake they could not afford. Even after reaching safety, the unease lingers. By morning, Tahoe National Forest returns to its daytime self. Sunlight filters through branches, and birdsong fills the air. Lakes sparkle again, and trails seem straightforward and welcoming. Evidence of the night feels distant, almost unreal, like a memory that fades when examined too closely. Yet the stories remain. They pass quietly between hikers and campers, shared in low voices and careful words. Beauty here is real, but it does not erase the deeper truth. The forest demands respect, especially after dark. Tahoe National Forest stands as a reminder that nature does not need to be loud to be powerful. It does not chase or threaten. It simply waits, wrapped in silence and shadow, offering wonder by day and unanswered questions by night. Stanislaus National Forest stretches across mountains and valleys shaped by ice, water, and time. Rivers cut through granite, and tall trees rise like silent witnesses to centuries of passage. Yet many who walk here sense something unresolved, as if the land itself is holding on to moments that were never fully settled. During the day, trails wind through meadows and dense woodland, guiding hikers past streams and fallen logs softened by moss. The air feels crisp and alive. Every sound carries clearly, from distant water to the soft crunch of boots on soil. Every sound carries clearly, from distant water to the soft crunch of boots on soil. From distant water to the soft crunch of boots on soil. But beneath this clarity lies an unease that is difficult to explain. Visitors often describe the feeling of arriving in the middle of something already in progress. As though conversations and emotions linger just out of view. The first sign usually comes as sound. Faint voices drift through the trees, low and tense, like an argument carried by the wind. The words cannot be understood, but the emotion is unmistakable. Anger, frustration, urgency. The voices rise and fall, overlapping, then fading away before anyone can locate their source. When hikers stop to listen, the forest offers no answers. There are no people nearby, no movement among the trees, only the quiet return of birds and wind. As footsteps continue along the trail, the sense of being accompanied grows stronger. A second set of footsteps seems to fall into rhythm beside the hiker, perfectly matched in pace and timing. Each step lands where it should not, slightly to the side, slightly behind. At first, it is easy to dismiss as echo or imagination. Forests are full of tricks, after all. Sound travels oddly through trees and stone. But doubt fades when the hiker stops. Boots plant firmly on the ground, movement paused, breath held. And still, the footsteps continue. One more step. Then another. They move forward as if someone else is walking on alone, unbothered by the sudden halt. When the hiker turns, there is nothing there. Looking down often reveals something more unsettling. Footprints appear in soft soil or dust, running parallel to the trail. They match in size and spacing, as if formed by the same stride. Sometimes they seem fresher than they should be, edges sharp and clear. Other times they fade suddenly, ending in the middle of the path with no explanation. The forest gives no clue as to where they begin or where they go. This sense of shared movement lingers throughout the walk. Even when the voices fall silent, the presence remains. The forest feels crowded despite its emptiness. Trees stand closer together. Trails narrow almost imperceptibly. Light shifts, filtered through branches in a way that makes distance hard to judge. The feeling is not aggressive, but persistent, like an uninvited companion who refuses to leave. As daylight fades, the atmosphere grows heavier. Shadows stretch across the forest floor, blurring the line between path and wilderness. Sounds multiply. A snapped twig echoes too loudly. Leaves rustle where no wind blows. The sense of unfinished business becomes stronger, pressing against the edges of thought. It feels as though the forest is replaying fragments of past moments, arguments that never found resolution, steps taken without clear purpose. Some hikers report that the voices return at dusk, closer than before. They argue in hushed tones, urgent and unresolved. The sound creates the sensation of standing between unseen figures, caught in the middle of a disagreement. That demands attention but offers no clarity. Fear does not arrive suddenly in Stanislaus National Forest. It grows slowly, woven into the experience of walking. Fear comes from the realization that solitude here is an illusion. Even when alone, a hiker may feel observed, accompanied, or guided. The forest seems to resist the idea of isolation, subtly discouraging those who attempt to move through it alone. When hikers choose to leave, relief comes gradually. The presence does not vanish all at once. Footsteps fade first. Then the voices soften into indistinct noise. Before disappearing entirely. Only when the trail opens into a wider space does the forest release its hold. Breathing becomes easier. thoughts clear. The sense of being followed dissolves into memory. By morning, Stanislaus National Forest looks unchanged. Trails lie quiet beneath the sun. Footprints belong only to animals and early hikers. The forest appears peaceful, even welcoming. Yet those who experienced its deeper presence carry something with them. A memory of arguments without faces. Of footsteps that refuse to stop. Of a place that seemed to insist on company. Perhaps the forest is shaped by what passed through it. Lives crossed here, decisions made, conflicts left unresolved. Or perhaps the land itself has learned to echo human movement and emotion, reflecting them back to those who enter. Whatever the reason, Stanislaus National Forest leaves many with the same impression. Some paths are not meant to be walked alone, and some places remember every step ever taken within them. At the edge of a long-forgotten landscape, there is a place where nature feels unusually aware. The land stretches quietly, shaped by wind, water, and time, yet it carries a presence that unsettles even the most experienced travelers. Those who arrive often expect silence and solitude. Instead, they encounter a feeling that the environment is paying attention. The first moments are subtle. Light behaves differently, filtered and restrained, as if the sky itself hesitates to fully reveal what lies below. Sounds seem distant, even when they are close. Footsteps soften. Breathing becomes more noticeable. The land does not rush. It waits. Paths move gently through the terrain, winding in ways that appear natural but feel intentional. Following them requires focus. A turn missed by seconds can feel like it never existed. Travelers sometimes stop, certain they remember a landmark that no longer appears where it should. The sensation is not panic, but quiet confusion, the kind that lingers long after movement resumes. As time passes, awareness grows. The ground feels layered, alive with unseen activity beneath the surface. Stones seem warm even in shade. Stillness settles that is not empty, but full, like a held breath. The land appears to listen as much as it reveals. Those who stay overnight describe a shift after dark. Temperature drops quickly. Shadows deepen. Boundary between shapes softens. A campfire becomes the only fixed point in an expanding field of darkness. Beyond its glow, the world feels closer, pressing inward without sound. Late at night, many report sensing movement nearby. Not sudden or aggressive, but steady and deliberate. The feeling travels rather than stays, circling slowly, testing distance. There is no clear source, only the awareness of proximity. Sleep comes lightly, interrupted by moments of alert stillness. Dreams often take on unusual clarity in this place. They arrive vivid and persistent, repeating images of long corridors, endless paths, and the sensation of being guided without words. Some wake with a sense of instruction, a feeling that the land has communicated something important without language. Morning light does not fully dissolve the unease. It reveals a landscape unchanged in appearance, yet different in tone. Colors feel muted. A short walk feels extended. A long pause passes unnoticed. The sense of being observed fades but never fully disappears. Visitors who linger describe subtle changes in behavior. They speak more quietly. They move with care. Decisions feel heavier, as if each step carries consequence. Even laughter sounds restrained, quickly absorbed by the surroundings. Explanations come easily. Psychology, environment, isolation. Yet logic alone does not account for the shared nature of these experiences. Strangers describe the same sensations without prompting. Awareness. Attention. A quiet pressure that does not threaten, but insists on respect. Those who leave often carry the memory longer than expected. Familiar places feel slightly altered. Silence seems louder. Shadows stretch differently at dusk. Some report dreams that echo the land they left behind, as if a connection remains, thin but persistent. The place itself does not change. It does not chase or follow. It does not announce its presence. It exists on its own terms, shaped by time beyond human scale. Those who pass through are momentary, leaving impressions that fade quickly, while the land continues uninterrupted. There is no single message hidden here. No clear warning or invitation. Only an experience that challenges the idea of control. To walk through this landscape is to feel small without feeling insignificant. To sense attention without hostility. In the end, most visitors agree on one thing. The land does not belong to those who enter it. It allows passage, not ownership. It observes, not judges. And when footsteps finally fade into distance, the place settles back into its quiet awareness. Unchanged, waiting for the next presence to arrive and feel the same unspoken attention pressing gently from all sides. Sequoia National Forest rises from the mountains like a living wall, its ancient trees standing so tall and close together that the sky itself feels distant. The trunks are wide and dark, their surfaces marked by centuries of weather and silence. From the moment visitors step beneath the canopy, light begins to fade. Sunbeams struggle to reach the forest floor, thinning into dim bands that vanish as quickly as they appear. The air here feels heavy, cool, and still. Sounds travel differently in this forest. Footsteps seem muted, absorbed by layers of needles and soil. Voices do not carry far, as if the forest prefers quiet. Many people notice their breathing slow without effort, syncing with the steady calm of the surroundings. As daylight weakens, a strange sensation often sets in. Some describe a sudden pressure on the chest, brief but unmistakable, like the weight of the air increasing all at once. It passes quickly, yet leaves behind unease. Others feel it come and go in waves, rising and falling, as if the forest itself is drawing breath. There is no pain, only the awareness of something vast and close. The scale of the trees plays tricks on perception. Time feels stretched. A short walk seems longer. Directions feel uncertain. Looking up offers no clear sense of height, only endless layers of branches and shadow. The forest does not feel empty, but it does not feel crowded either. It feels occupied in a way that defies explanation. When night arrives, Sequoia National Forest changes its tone. Darkness settles early, flowing down the trunks like ink. The temperature drops, and the air grows even more still. Campfires flicker weakly against the massive forms surrounding them, their light swallowed before it can reach far. Beyond the fire, shapes blur together, bark and shadow becoming indistinguishable. Low sounds begin to emerge after sunset. At first, they resemble distant wind moving through high branches. Then they deepen, forming slow, rumbling tones that echo faintly between the trees. Some campers describe these sounds as growls, low and steady, never sharp or sudden. They do not seem to approach, yet they never fully fade. Listening too closely only makes them harder to place. Sleep comes uneasily here. Dreams are vivid and heavy, filled with towering forms and endless corridors of trees. People wake frequently, unsure what stirred them. The forest remains silent, yet the feeling of being watched lingers. Even inside tents or vehicles, the sense of presence does not disappear. It simply waits. Those who stay multiple nights often report changes in mood. Thoughts feel slower, deeper, harder to shake. The outside world seems distant, unreal. Some feel reluctant to leave their campsite, as if rooted in place by the same force that anchors the trees. Others experience the opposite, an urgent need to move, to escape the weight pressing in from all sides. During the day, the forest appears calmer but no less intense. Wildlife moves quietly and with purpose. Birds call sparingly. Even the wind seems careful, brushing past branches rather than stirring them. Many visitors believe the forest carries memory, not in stories or images, but in sensation. The pressure. The sounds. The dreams. It is as if time has layered itself here, each era settling on top of the last, building a presence that cannot be seen but can be felt. The trees have witnessed centuries of change, yet they remain unmoved, growing slowly, patiently. Those who leave Sequoia National Forest often carry it with them. For some, the effect is subtle. A lingering heaviness in quiet rooms. A sudden tightness in the chest when standing beneath tall buildings or dense trees. For others, the impact is stronger. Nightmares return without warning, filled with dark forests and towering shapes that block out the sky. Years may pass, but the dreams remain vivid, as if untouched by time. Despite these experiences, people continue to visit. The beauty of the forest is undeniable. The sheer scale inspires awe. The silence offers reflection. Sequoia National Forest does not threaten. It does not chase. It simply exists, vast and ancient. Asking nothing while taking everything in. In the end, the forest stands as it always has. Breathing in its own slow rhythm. Holding the sky at a distance. Whether the sensations visitors feel are born from imagination, nature, or something older is impossible to know. What remains certain is the impression left behind. Once felt, the presence of Sequoia National Forest is not easily forgotten, and for some, it never truly lets go. El Dorado National Forest spreads across rugged terrain shaped by stone, water, and time. Thick pines rise over slopes that once echoed with the sounds of picks and shovels. Long before modern trails and campsites, this land was worked relentlessly by miners chasing veins of gold hidden deep in the mountains. When the rush ended, many simply left, abandoning tools, camps, and tunnels to the forest. By daylight, signs of that past appear quietly. Weathered timbers lie half buried in soil. Rusted metal peaks from under moss. Shallow pits and collapsed entrances dot the hillsides, easy to miss unless you know where to look. These remains feel forgotten, slowly being reclaimed by roots and stone. As evening settles in, the forest grows still. The air cools quickly near the old mining sites, sinking into depressions where shafts once opened wide. Shadows deepen around broken structures, and the ground seems uneven, hollow in places. As if something beneath it has not fully settled. Those who wander near these areas after dark often report strange lights. Lantern glows appear briefly near abandoned shafts, flickering softly as though carried by an unseen hand. The light never burns steadily. It wavers, dims, and drifts, sometimes vanishing the moment it is noticed. When people move closer, they find only darkness and cold stone. Voices are also reported, rising from beneath the ground. Faint cries echo upward through collapsed tunnels, distorted and distant. The sounds do not form clear words, yet they carry emotion, urgency, and fatigue. They seem to come from deep below, where no open passage remains. The earth absorbs the sound almost as soon as it appears, leaving silence behind. Some believe these voices are echoes trapped in the mountain, replayed by shifting rock and air. Others feel certain they are something more. The idea that spirits of the past never left is shared quietly, passed from hiker to hiker, from ranger to local resident who grew up hearing these stories. The mining camps themselves add to the unease. Old fire rings sit untouched, surrounded by stones blackened long ago. Collapsed cabins lean at odd angles, their walls open to the night. Wind moves through broken boards, producing low tones that resemble murmured conversation. It is easy to imagine life continuing there, frozen in another time. Those who camp nearby often wake suddenly, unsure why. The forest is silent, yet sleep does not return easily. Some describe the feeling of being watched, not from above, but from below. The ground feels closer, heavier, as though the mountain itself is aware of their presence. Search teams and forest workers acknowledge the danger of these old sites. Tunnels can collapse without warning. Hidden shafts drop sharply beneath thin layers of soil. Yet even those familiar with the risks admit that the reports go beyond simple hazards. Lights appear where no reflective material exists. Sounds travel upward from places long sealed. Daylight does little to erase the feeling left behind. Visitors return to these areas and find nothing out of place. No tracks. No fuel. No sign of recent human activity. The forest appears calm, unchanged, as if the night never happened. History weighs heavily here. Many miners worked in harsh conditions, isolated and exhausted. Some never returned home. Records are incomplete, and graves are scattered or lost entirely. It is easy to understand why people feel the past has not fully released its hold on the land. Even those who dismiss the stories often feel a sense of respect near the old shafts. They move carefully. Something about these places encourages caution, as if the ground itself demands it. El Dorado National Forest continues to draw hikers, campers, and explorers. Most pass through without incident, enjoying the quiet beauty of the mountains. Yet a few leave with stories they struggle to explain. A light seen where no one stood. A voice heard beneath solid earth. A sudden chill that had no clear source. The forest does not reveal its secrets easily. It keeps them buried alongside the tunnels and tools of another era. Whether echoes of history or something that refuses to fade, the presence is felt most strongly at night. Among the trees and stone, the past remains close. Listening. Waiting. Klamath National Forest spreads across rugged mountains and deep valleys, a landscape shaped by age and isolation. Thick stands of trees rise close together, their branches weaving a canopy that dims the light even at midday. The forest feels ancient, as if time moves differently beneath its cover, slower and heavier with memory. Trails here rarely follow straight lines. They curve without warning, split into narrow paths, then reunite farther on. A route that seems familiar can suddenly feel new, marked by rocks and roots that do not match what was remembered moments earlier. Travelers often pause to check their bearings, surprised by how quickly direction becomes uncertain. During the day, the forest is quiet but watchful. Wind moves unevenly through the trees, stirring leaves in pockets rather than across the whole canopy. The silence is not empty. It feels full, layered with distant movement that never fully reveals itself. As evening approaches, the forest grows more enclosed. The air cools, and the ground releases the scent of damp earth and pine. Campers set up early, sensing the need to prepare before darkness settles in. Fires are built carefully, their light pushing back only a short distance against the trees. After nightfall, unfamiliar sounds begin to surface. Some campers report hearing drumming far off in the distance. The rhythm is steady and low, carrying through the forest without clear direction. It does not rush or fade. It continues, patient and deliberate, as if marking time. Along with the drumming comes chanting. The voices are indistinct, rising and falling together, blending into the forest itself. Words cannot be made out, yet the sound feels intentional. It seems to belong to the place, neither welcoming nor hostile, simply present. The effect on those who hear it is immediate. Conversations stop. Fires burn lower as people listen, unsure whether the sound is growing closer or simply echoing through the trees. The forest seems to lean inward, holding the noise within its depths. Animals react before people do. Dogs refuse to move beyond certain points on the trail, pulling back against their leads with quiet insistence. Horses grow restless, shifting their weight and turning away from specific areas. Wildlife that was active during the day disappears completely, leaving the forest unnaturally still. Some campers notice clear boundaries where animals will not cross. A stretch of ground may look no different from the surrounding forest, yet creatures avoid it entirely. Tracks stop abruptly at invisible lines. Birds fall silent when passing overhead, then resume their calls farther on. The sense of unease builds slowly. It is not panic, but pressure, a growing awareness that something is wrong without any clear reason why. The forest feels closer, the darkness thicker. Even the firelight seems weaker, as though the night is absorbing it. Paths that were easy to follow during the day become confusing after dark. Landmarks shift in appearance. A fallen log looks taller, a rock formation unfamiliar. Distance is hard to judge, and the urge to stay close to camp grows stronger with each passing hour. Those who attempt to ignore the sounds often find sleep impossible. The drumming continues, steady and relentless. Chanting rises and falls, sometimes seeming distant, sometimes uncomfortably near. Time stretches. Minutes feel like hours, and the night feels endless. Many campers choose to leave before sunrise. They pack in silence, working quickly under fading stars. The decision is rarely discussed. There is simply a shared understanding that staying is not an option. Relief only comes once the forest begins to thin behind them. Those who leave early often describe an overwhelming sense of fear that fades with distance. It is not tied to any single event or sight. Feels more like a warning that was impossible to ignore. Once outside the forest, the fear loosens its grip, leaving confusion in its place. By morning, Klamath National Forest looks unchanged. Sunlight filters through the trees, and the trails appear calm and inviting. The sounds of the night feel distant, almost unreal. Yet the memory remains strong. Visitors speak of the forest with a new respect. Aware that its beauty hides something deeper and harder to define. The forest does not threaten openly. It does not chase or reveal itself. It simply exists on its own terms. Klamath National Forest stands as a place where the natural world feels untamed and self-contained. It reminds those who enter that not every mystery is meant to be solved. Some places are defined by what they withhold, not what they show. Leaving visitors to carry the experience with them long after they have gone. San Bernardino National Forest rises above the surrounding valleys. Crowded highways lead into quiet mountains. Busy campgrounds sit beside deep stretches of wilderness. During the day the forest feels alive and accessible. Filled with hikers, campers and families seeking cool air and open space. Tall pines sway gently. Sunlight spills across trails. The sound of distant voices blends easily with birds and wind. Yet beneath this familiar surface, strange experiences persist. Many who spend time here sense that the forest is paying attention, quietly observing those who enter. It is not an immediate fear, but a subtle awareness that grows stronger with each passing hour. Especially once daylight begins to fade. As evening settles in, campsites take on a different character. Firelight flickers against tree trunks, creating long, moving shadows. The air cools quickly, and familiar sounds soften. Laughter and conversation die down, replaced by the crackle of burning wood and the occasional rustle of leaves. It is during these quiet moments that campers often notice the footsteps. At first, the sound seems distant. Slow, deliberate steps move just beyond the ring of firelight. They circle the campsite, never approaching close enough to see, never retreating far enough to disappear. Gravel crunches. Dry needles shift under unseen weight. Campers pause their conversations, listening, waiting for someone to speak or emerge from the darkness. No one does. When flashlights sweep the trees, the forest reveals nothing unusual. Branches sway gently. Shadows fall back into place. The footsteps stop as if they were never there. Relief settles in, brief and fragile. Until the sound begins again, now closer, pacing steadily around the edge of the campsite. Some campers report that the footsteps respond to attention. When ignored, they grow louder. When challenged, they fade into silence. The forest seems to test reactions, gauging fear, confidence, or curiosity. No clear pattern emerges, only the feeling of being evaluated by something unseen. As the night deepens, other disturbances follow. Tents tremble lightly, fabric shifting as if brushed by passing hands. There is no wind. Guy lines remain taut. Nearby trees stand still. The movement is subtle but unmistakable, enough to wake sleeping campers and draw quiet breaths in the darkness. Those awake watch shadows move across the firelight. Shapes stretch and shrink against tents and trees, sliding in ways that do not match the flames. The shadows appear briefly human, then dissolve into abstract forms before anyone can focus long enough to be sure. The fire pops softly, indifferent to the unease growing around it. Despite the fear, there is rarely a sense of immediate danger. The forest does not rush or overwhelm. It lingers. It waits. Campers often describe the feeling of being measured, as if the land itself is deciding something. Each reaction, each movement, feels observed. Calm is met with quiet. Panic seems to invite further disturbance. Those who attempt to leave in the middle of the night often hesitate. Trails look unfamiliar under moonlight. Landmarks disappear into shadow. The forest feels larger, more complex than it did during the day. Some campers choose to stay put, believing that patience is part of the unspoken test. As hours pass, the disturbances usually lessen. Footsteps drift farther away. Tents grow still. Shadows return to their expected places. Exhaustion eventually overtakes fear, and sleep comes in shallow waves. By morning, the forest appears unchanged. Sunlight filters through branches. Birds sing freely. The campsite looks ordinary, peaceful, almost welcoming. Yet the memory lingers. Campers wake with the sense that something has been decided, though they cannot say what. Some feel relief, as if granted permission to remain. Others feel unsettled, eager to pack up and leave without delay. The forest seems to respond accordingly, offering smooth departures or small complications, fallen branches, misplaced items, trails that briefly confuse. San Bernardino National Forest has long been shaped by human presence. Roads, cabins, and campgrounds weave through ancient terrain. Perhaps this blending of the familiar and the wild creates the conditions for such experiences. Or perhaps the forest simply reflects the mindset of those who enter, amplifying thoughts and emotions once darkness falls. Many return again and again, drawn by beauty and curiosity. Others choose not to come back, unable to shake the feeling of being judged by something vast and patient. The forest offers no explanation, no clear answers, only the experience itself. In the end, San Bernardino National Forest remains what it has always been. A place of towering trees and open skies. A refuge from heat and noise. And for some, a quiet reminder that nature does not merely host visitors. It observes them. It tests them. And sometimes, it decides who truly belongs beneath its canopy. Cleveland National Forest stretches across Southern California with rugged ridges, deep canyons, and dry, sun-baked trails. By day, it appears calm and unassuming. Sunlight scorches the earth, highlighting the twisted shapes of oaks and chaparral. Heat rises from rocks and dirt, bending the air with a visible shimmer. The forest feels wide and open, yet every shadow hints at hidden depth. As evening falls, the character of the forest shifts. Light fades quickly behind ridgelines, leaving pockets of darkness that grow heavier with each passing minute. Trails that seemed clear during the day become mazes of shadow and silence. The air cools unevenly, carrying scents of pine, dust, and earth. Sounds change. Birds grow quiet. The wind softens. Hikers often speak of whispers that accompany them along the trails at night. The voices seem to come from every direction and nowhere at once, rising with the rustle of leaves and fading with the crunch of footsteps. Some pause, straining to catch a word, yet the sounds dissolve before they can make sense. Figures sometimes appear in peripheral vision. They are fleeting, blurred by darkness, glimpsed only from the corner of an eye. Standing still, a hiker might sense movement in the shadow of a boulder or between two trees. Turning quickly reveals nothing. There is no shape, no pattern, yet the impression remains. The feeling of being watched grows stronger, pressing lightly at the edge of awareness. Sudden silence often follows. One moment, nocturnal creatures stir, insects hum, the wind rattles branches. The next, all natural sound cuts off. Even distant streams seem to pause. This stillness is heavy, not peaceful. It presses downward, making the night feel compressed. Hikers describe hearts pounding, footsteps slowing. As the forest itself appears to hold its breath. It is as if the land has become aware of its visitors in a way that cannot be explained. Navigating the trails after dark requires attention and respect. Shadows twist across familiar paths. Landmarks shift subtly, creating the sense that distance and direction have become unreliable. Rocks, trees, and boulders appear in new positions when observed after a short walk. The forest does not change quickly. Instead, it moves imperceptibly, leaving the observer uncertain of what is natural and what is altered. Even those who rely on maps and instruments report confusion. Compasses sometimes drift, and GPS signals fluctuate in deep canyons or under dense foliage. Hikers feel compelled to pause, listen, and recalibrate both tools and instincts. Awareness becomes heightened. Every sound, every scent, every motion draws attention. The forest demands observation, patience, and caution. The land beneath the feet is uneven, scattered with dry leaves, rocks, and fallen branches. Each step produces sound that seems amplified in the stillness, yet fails to draw any response. A snap of a twig echoes, yet sometimes no echo returns at all. Hikers develop a rhythm, moving slowly and deliberately, aware that every action is observed, if not by human eyes, then by something older and patient. Sleep is fleeting for those who camp in the forest at night. Tents feel vulnerable beneath towering trees. Shadows shift with the wind, and the faintest noise stirs vigilance. Dreams can be vivid, reflecting the atmosphere of the trails, with corridors of trees, shifting paths, and subtle pressures from unseen presences. Waking is accompanied by lingering unease, the sense that the forest has imprinted itself on the mind. By morning, sunlight returns and changes the perception of the forest. Dry ridges glow in gold and amber, shadows recede, and trails appear clear and familiar once more. Yet visitors carry a memory of the night with them. The whispers, the sudden silence, and the fleeting figures linger as sensations and thoughts. Even in daylight, the awareness of what occurred at night remains, subtle but persistent. Those who spend extended time in Cleveland National Forest learn to respect its rhythms. They speak quietly of the land's attentiveness. They move with care, listening for whispers and pausing in stillness. They note the weight of shadows, the unpredictability of trails, and the quiet insistence of the forest that nothing is entirely ordinary. The forest itself remains unchanged. It does not pursue or threaten. It exists on its own terms, vast, patient, and observant. Visitors leave carrying impressions that cannot fully be described. The trails remain. The ridges endure. The whispers and silence persist in the memory of those who have walked among them. Cleveland National Forest is a place where day and night tell different stories. By day, it invites exploration and admiration. By night, it commands attention and respect. Those who traverse its paths experience a landscape alive in ways beyond measurement. A land where natural beauty and quiet unease coexist, leaving visitors with the undeniable sense that they were never entirely alone. Humboldt redwoods stretch endlessly across Northern California, their massive trunks rising straight and silent toward the sky. Sunlight filters through the canopy in pale, shifting streams, illuminating patches of moss and fallen needles on the forest floor. Each tree seems immovable, timeless, as if rooted not only in the earth but in the memory of centuries past. The air carries the scent of damp wood, soil, and a subtle hint of cold, all blending into a quiet presence that feels alive. Visitors stepping into the forest often notice an immediate difference. The ordinary sounds of the world fade quickly, replaced by a deep, enveloping silence. Wind moves through the treetops in low, deliberate pulses. Birds call infrequently, their songs seeming measured and deliberate. Every step on the soft, moss-covered ground echoes faintly, yet feels as though it is absorbed by something much larger than the individual. The scale of the trees can overwhelm even experienced hikers. Each trunk is wide enough to hide a person, and the height makes sunlight appear distant, leaving the forest floor in near-perpetual twilight. Shadows shift with the smallest movement of the sun, creating spaces that feel alive, filled with presence even when nothing moves. Time seems to slow in Humboldt redwoods. Hours can pass without notice, and the boundaries of distance and direction feel less certain. Some visitors report experiences that defy ordinary explanation. From deep within the soil and roots, voices emerge, low and resonant, as if the ground itself speaks. They are not words but tones and vibrations, felt more than heard. The sound carries a weight, a sense of knowledge accumulated over centuries, of events long past yet preserved in the very fibers of the forest. Sensitive individuals often describe feelings of lightheadedness, a gentle pull on the senses, as if the forest's energy presses against the body. Paths wind carefully between trunks. Yet even familiar trails can appear altered after a single visit. Moss and fallen branches obscure markings. What was once a clear route can vanish under the dense undergrowth. And moments later, a clearing appears where none existed before. The forest feels aware. Not in hostility, but in quiet observation. Guiding movement without force. Footsteps echo. Not against walls or rocks, but into an unseen space. That carries sound differently, blending it with shadows and scent. At night, the forest transforms further. Twilight deepens quickly beneath the canopy, and darkness feels absolute. Shapes form in the dim light, suggested by the movement of branches or the tilt of shadows. The air grows cooler, heavier, as if the trees themselves are breathing. Some describe the sensation of being watched, not closely or urgently, but steadily, as though the forest records every presence and remembers it long after it departs. Hikers and campers note a distinct rhythm in the forest. Wind pulses, footsteps echo, and the distant voices of unseen wildlife blend into a cadence. Nights are long and often restless. Dreams reflect the scale and depth of the surroundings. People awake with lingering impressions of immensity, of shadows that shift just beyond vision, and of a quiet energy that refuses to leave even when sunlight returns. Despite the intensity, the forest also inspires awe and reflection. Sunlight filtering through tall, layered branches casts patterns that seem deliberate, painting the ground with shifting shapes of green and gold. Streams and small rivers wind through the trunks, carrying clear water that reflects the canopy above. Birds, deer, and smaller creatures appear with sudden movements, silent and purposeful. Their presence reinforces a sense of life that is both immediate and ancient. Visitors who spend extended periods often describe a slow shift in perception. Thoughts move differently, quieter, more deliberate. The sense of self expands and contracts in the stillness of the forest. For some, the experience is meditative, offering clarity and calm. For others, it is intense, even overwhelming. The sheer scale, the weight of age, and the energy that seems to reside within the forest can leave the body lightheaded, the mind stretched toward something beyond comprehension. The forest holds stories not written in books but in every ring of every trunk, in every root and stone. In every root and stone. It remembers. The events of centuries are preserved invisibly, embedded in soil and wood, carried in the quiet movement of wind through branches. Visitors leave with impressions rather than evidence. Footprints vanish, echoes fade, yet the feeling of presence remains. Humboldt redwoods does not chase, warn, or demand. It simply exists, immense and enduring, leaving every person who enters with a sense of having been part of something far greater than themselves. Time spent here cannot be measured in minutes or hours. It is measured in awareness, in moments of stillness that press against the body and mind. Reminding those who walk beneath the canopy of the scale of nature, of life, and of memory itself. When leaving, some feel the forest continue to follow them. Its energy lingering in small, subtle ways. A breeze in the wrong moment, the echo of distant birds, or the feeling of weight on the chest can remind them that what has been witnessed cannot be unseen. Humboldt redwood stands as it always has, ancient and patient. Its trees reach toward the sky, roots grip the earth. And its energy persists, quietly observing all who enter. For those who walk among these giants, the forest is more than scenery. It is presence, memory, and a testament to time. Once felt, it is never truly left behind. And for some, the experience shapes perception for a lifetime. Lassen National Forest stretches across volcanic peaks and dense coniferous slopes, a landscape shaped by fire, steam, and shifting rock. Trails wind past bubbling springs, fumaroles, and mud pots that hiss and hiss with heat hidden beneath the surface. The forest feels alive in ways that go beyond the wind in the trees or the calls of birds. By day, the forest is strikingly beautiful. Smoke rises from vents in columns of white, contrasting against dark rock and bright green meadows. The air smells of minerals and earth, strong but clean. Streams cut through valleys, carrying water that hisses over stones heated by the sun and geothermal activity below. Hikers feel the warmth of the ground in places where solid rock should dominate, a reminder that the land is not entirely still. As night falls, the forest takes on a different character. Shadows stretch across trails and ridges, soft shapes blurring together. Lights appear beneath the soil, faint glows that seem to pulse from cracks and vents. Some hikers have described stepping onto a patch of ground and seeing tiny flickers like lanterns below the surface, though no one is present. Though no one is present. The glow moves subtly, never remaining in one place for long, as if carried by something deep within the volcanic layers. As if carried by something deep within the volcanic layers. Footsteps sometimes follow where the ground seems unstable. The echoes can come from all directions, distant yet near, creating a sensation of being accompanied without another person in sight. The forest responds in unexpected ways. A slope that felt solid may sink slightly, a log may shift unexpectedly, and the earth seems to rearrange itself underfoot. Longtime forest workers and geologists acknowledge the unpredictability of La Sina's volcanic terrain. Steam vents can release without warning, ground can collapse into hidden cavities, and geothermal heat can make areas feel soft or hollow. Yet even they admit that some experiences are harder to explain. Lights beneath the ground, sounds of movement where none is possible, and the eerie feeling of being observed are reported consistently. Those who spend hours alone in the forest at night often describe a growing awareness of the land itself. The forest is not merely a backdrop. It feels conscious, sensitive to motion, and attuned to presence. Each step carries weight beyond the physical, a sense that the ground is alive, alert, and watching. Trails twist differently than expected, valleys seem to stretch and compress, and the smallest features take on significance. Streams of steam hiss like whispers, winding through rocks and soil in patterns that seem to shift each time they are approached. The warmth of the ground can rise unexpectedly beneath boots, and pockets of air release strange scents of sulfur and earth. The rhythm of the forest changes as the night deepens. Sounds that were familiar fade or distort. Wind gusts carry odd echoes. And distant shadows move in ways that defy simple explanation. Many believe that the volcanic forces that created the land have left it with a memory. Energy remains trapped beneath layers of rock and soil, subtly affecting all who enter. Lights seen beneath the ground are thought by some to be manifestations of this energy. Footsteps heard where solid ground should be are interpreted as the land moving itself, breathing, shifting, alive in a way that challenges human understanding. People leaving the forest often carry the sensation with them. The experience does not end at the edge of the trail. Vehicles climb roads with more awareness than usual. Forest edges seem closer or farther than remembered. Even in daylight, hikers recall faint glows beneath rocks or hear whispers at the corner of their minds. It is a quiet awareness that lingers, a reminder that the forest is not passive. Lassen National Forest draws many visitors, from those seeking adventure to those drawn by its unique geothermal features. Most pass through safely, marveling at the steaming vents and high peaks. Yet a few return with stories that hint at something deeper. The lights beneath the soil, the shifting earth, the untraceable footsteps all contribute to a sense that the land itself has a presence, a pulse that cannot be ignored. The forest does not threaten, and it does not call. It simply exists, in constant motion, guided by the forces of heat, pressure, and time. Visitors are invited to witness its beauty, to explore its paths, but also to respect its unpredictability. Every step, every glance into shadow, is part of an ongoing dialogue between those who enter and the living land beneath their feet. In the quiet of night, Lassen feels fully awake. Steam rises and drifts in shifting columns. Shadows dance across crags and ridges. And the earth moves subtly underfoot. Lights flicker beneath the surface. Like embers of ancient energy waiting to be noticed. The forest watches, breathes, and remembers. And those who walk among its volcanic slopes come to understand that this is a place where the land itself is alive. Desolation wilderness stretches across jagged peaks and barren valleys, a place where nature asserts itself in stark and uncompromising ways. Sparse trees dot rocky slopes, their twisted forms leaning against wind and time. The ground is uneven, strewn with stones and boulders that seem to have always been there, unchanged by human presence. Silence dominates, broken only by the occasional whisper of wind over stone. During the day, hikers feel the expanse of the wilderness. Trails are open but uninviting, leading over ridges and through narrow passes. Shadows fall sharply across the rocks, and sunlight reflects harshly off bare surfaces. The environment feels honest and raw, beautiful yet unyielding. As evening descends, the temperature drops quickly. Colors fade, and the shadows lengthen. The wind moves differently, carrying sound in ways that make distance deceptive. A small gust may sound like a presence moving close by. Hikers report strange auditory experiences after dark. Voices echo back in distorted forms, seeming familiar yet impossible to place. A shout or a call sounds returned with an unfamiliar intonation, delayed or stretched unnaturally. Some describe their own words coming back altered, a reminder of how the wilderness can play tricks on perception. Shadows on the rocky ground seem to move independently of the light. A hiker will glance toward a boulder only to find a dark shape has shifted, though the sun or moon has not changed its angle. Movement is subtle but persistent, enough to create unease. The forest is minimal here, yet the landscape seems alive in other ways. The sense of isolation is profound. With few trees and open rocky terrain, there is little to hide behind. Yet the wilderness feels watchful. Sound carries in odd directions. The echo of a single step may return amplified or warped, creating a feeling that someone, or something, is nearby. The mind struggles to reconcile what is seen and heard with reality. The sense of isolation is profound. Many hikers speak of an inexplicable dread that builds without warning. It is not tied to any tangible threat, but it is undeniable. Some stop to rest, unable to continue until the sensation eases. Others push forward, driven by instinct rather than confidence. Night amplifies the effect. Darkness creeps across rocks and valleys, obscuring familiar features. Light from a headlamp throws long, flickering shadows that seem to move in opposition to the hiker. Stars above provide guidance yet do not diminish the sensation of exposure. The wilderness appears both vast and enclosing at the same time. Campers who stay overnight often awaken to the same unsettling quiet. Sounds from earlier in the night seem to repeat or echo. Footsteps may appear near tents, though no one is present. The wind carries strange tones through rocky corridors, blending with the echoes of distant movement. Sleep comes fitfully, accompanied by a persistent awareness of the wilderness watching silently. Paths that seemed clear during the day become harder to navigate after dark. Rocks and boulders merge visually, making distances deceptive. Familiar landmarks appear out of place. Even experienced hikers report confusion, as though the terrain subtly shifts while they move. The mind struggles to trust perception fully. Despite these experiences, the wilderness offers moments of clarity and awe. Sunlight on high ridges, reflection on alpine lakes, and the sharp air invigorate those who walk its trails. Beauty and danger coexist in a delicate balance. Awareness of the forest's unpredictability becomes part of the experience. By morning, desolation wilderness returns to its familiar, open state. Shadows shorten, and the landscape regains definition. Silence persists but feels less threatening in daylight. Rocks, trees, and sparse vegetation resume their natural appearance, indifferent to the events of the night. Those who leave carry a lasting impression. The wilderness is remembered not only for its rugged beauty but for the quiet intensity of its presence. Fear and awe intermingle, a reminder of the power of untamed landscapes. Desolation wilderness demands respect, patience, and a keen sense of observation from all who enter. Even after returning to populated areas, memories linger. The echo of voices, the shifting shadows, and the heavy silence remain vivid. The forest does not reveal its secrets easily. It exists beyond simple understanding. A place where perception, nature, and the human mind intersect in profound ways. The wilderness is complete in itself. neither hostile nor friendly. Offering experiences that endure long after the trails have ended. Point Reyes Forest stretches across rugged hills and hidden valleys, a landscape shaped by wind, fog, and time. Trails wind through dense groves of oak and redwood, where sunlight filters weakly through thick canopies. During clear hours, the forest feels serene, alive with birdsong and the faint rustle of leaves. The air carries the scent of damp earth and salt from nearby coastlines, a mixture that is at once grounding and disorienting. Fog here can arrive without warning. One moment the world is bright and familiar. The next it is muted and uncertain. Mist creeps along the ground and drifts between trees, softening shapes and swallowing sound. Visibility shrinks, and the forest transforms into a landscape where distance is unreliable. Paths twist and merge into one another, and familiar markers vanish beneath the shifting gray. Amid the fog, figures sometimes appear. Brief glimpses of movement, shapes that suggest human presence, vanish before a closer look can confirm them. They move with no clear path, fading in and out like smoke. The forest offers no answers, only the lingering impression of presence and motion where none should be. Whispers drift through the trees, light and intangible, coming from every direction. The sound is not words that can be understood, but tones and textures that suggest caution, curiosity, or warning. A hiker may pause, straining to discern meaning, only to find that the sound has shifted, as if the voices themselves are following, weaving around them, always just out of comprehension. The effect is subtle yet profound, a sense that the forest is listening as much as it is observed. The terrain adds to the disorientation. Hills rise sharply, only to give way to hidden dips and gullies. Roots twist along the trails, gripping soil like the hands of the forest itself. Moss and lichen cover fallen logs, softening steps and dampening sound, making footsteps seem to float. Even familiar areas can appear strange when obscured by fog, with angles and shadows that distort perception and challenge confidence. Those who move deeper into the forest often experience a heightened awareness of their own thoughts and fears. It is as if the trees and mist act as a mirror, reflecting anxieties that are usually contained. Every shadow becomes a potential threat, every sound amplified in significance. The fog both conceals and reveals, creating a space where imagination and reality blend, leaving visitors unsure of where one ends and the other begins. Time seems to stretch differently within the forest. Minutes may pass like hours, or hours may compress into fleeting moments. Light shifts subtly through the fog, casting long, shifting shadows that confuse the sense of direction. Trails that were clear when entered can vanish or reroute, encouraging caution and attention. Every step must be deliberate, every decision measured, because the forest does not yield to haste. Many visitors report the urge to look back when leaving. Even on well-marked paths, there is a compelling sense of being watched. Shapes appear in peripheral vision, vanishing upon direct focus. Sounds echo with a faint but unmistakable resonance, as if footsteps, whispers, and wind conspire to remind travelers that they are not alone. The feeling is neither hostile nor comforting, simply persistent and undeniable. Exiting the forest does not immediately erase the memory of these sensations. Sunlight and open space return gradually, easing tension and restoring perspective. Yet the experience lingers. Hikers carry the weight of subtle observation. The memory of fog that hides and reveals. Of whispers that seem to anticipate thought. Of figures that dissolve like mist. Even after leaving, the forest continues to occupy awareness. A quiet presence at the edge of perception. Point Reyes Forest exists in a space between natural beauty and uncanny awareness. It is shaped by towering trees, shifting fog, and undulating terrain. Yet also by the perceptions and emotions of those who enter. It challenges visitors, asking them to move with caution and to confront unease without immediate recourse. The forest teaches attention, patience, and humility, revealing that not all mysteries demand resolution. For those who return, the forest remains familiar yet forever changed by memory. Paths that were once clear may seem more complex, fog more sudden, shadows more insistent. Each visit carries the potential for new experiences, subtle tests of perception and courage. The forest does not announce its intentions, nor does it offer guarantees. It exists as a living environment, a place that observes quietly, mirrors fears, and leaves lasting impressions for all who traverse its fog-laden trails. Ultimately, Point Reyes Forest is more than a collection of trees and trails. That invites awareness, that reflects the inner landscape of those who walk within it. And that lingers in memory long after the return to light and openness. The fog, the whispers, and the fleeting figures serve as reminders that some forests are not simply to be crossed, but experienced fully, with attention to every sound, every shadow, and every step. And every step. Thank you for walking these haunted forests with me tonight. California's woods are beautiful, ancient, and dangerous in ways we do not always understand. Some forests welcome visitors. Others remember pain, loss, and unfinished stories. If you ever find yourself standing at the edge of a dark forest, listening to the wind move through the trees, remember these tales. Listen carefully. Trust your instincts. And if the forest calls your name, ask yourself, is it truly inviting you in, or is it asking you to never leave? Rest well, my friend. Until our next haunted journey into the darkness.